actually living their kiddie lives. Yesterday, the big news that broke: school rules, what's happening in the coming term, will there be masks or won't they? The answer is students will continue to wear their face masks. So last night, I'm sure parents, teachers and the whole, anyone involved in the education network was glued to the national press briefing, which outlines the protocol for the schools for the academic new year 2022-2023, which begins next week when over 1 million students and 65,000 educational staff will start a new school term.
And the key topic was face masks, and it's been announced that wearing face masks is mandatory inside closed areas, while students and personnel who have contracted COVID-19 or those suffering from respiratory symptoms are allowed to choose the e-learning and remote working options.
And along with that, it was announced that students aged 12 plus and admin and all staff must get a negative PCR test with a 96-hour validity before the start of school. So one PCR test will be required, and then further tests throughout the year will only be required if the person has COVID symptoms. So that's kind of the latest that come through. The key things are, if you're over 12 going back to school, you need to get a PCR test, and there will be face masks in closed spaces.
I mean, that's amazing. We have these regulations set out for us and announced well in advance before the schools open. So everyone is prepared. They know the regulations. Masks are mandatory still. And then, you know the PCR regulations as well.
Exactly. And I think I'm in a lot of kind of mums Facebook groups. And I think that a lot of people aren't happy with the mask situation. And you can see it, so people have responded to NCM on Twitter. They said, please drop the masks. The entire world is not wearing them, and I think they're really concerned about kids going back into a new year with face masks on. However, like you said, regulation is there for a reason, and I think parents will not. It's a really tricky one for parents. However, starting the new school year, we have been very fortunate with COVID in terms of how we've gotten to live our lives. I think people are just comparing schools versus like the malls because people aren't really sticking to those regulations. However, this is a regulation put forth for a reason. And we have been very lucky in Dubai with the rules laid out for us, and we've been lucky because of those rules. So as of now, those are the rules that they are, but people are questioning NCEMA and whether or not there'll be any changes after that. We don't know.
You're so right. And like the thing is, people are never happy with what, like if they say no mask wearing anymore in schools, there'll be a huge section of parents that'll just not be happy with it. And I feel like, kids are so hands-on, touchy, physical, they just, like very close, in very close proximity with each other. So it's so important for them to wear masks because the pandemic is still not over.
It's a very hard one to call. I think on the parent side, they're saying, how can you expect kids to go back into school when, they can't even see their new teachers' faces? And you don't even know if someone's smiling at you. And for a kid, that's very, very important. So you kind of really understand their concerns on that side. But I think obviously on the other side of it, it's making sure that once there's a breakout in a classroom, that leads to potentially 30 people staying home from school. So they kind of want to put that off as long as possible. I'm guessing maybe the conversation is, remote working. You don't want to go back to remote working. No one wants to go back to the time when kids are at home with parents, because I cannot, after spending a week in a house with 3 kids, and they did that remote working and teaching their young kids for 3 or 4 months, very hard, and we applaud parents every step of that way. We that was incredible, tough ride for all parents who went through that, and I think the key thing is making sure that does not happen.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, health above all. Parents might be afraid of expressions and what will kids feel inside, all of that stuff, but health comes first. Because if not health, then you're sitting at home, like you said, you're sick, it passes on to the elderly members of the family. So many things can go wrong. So this is all put in place for your precaution and the community's precaution.
So and a final word, we fully understand what parents are going through at this time, because we see the sense of that people are unhappy with this decision. But let's just try and understand that they've been put in place for a reason by the authorities that steered us through a very difficult time. And I think we all came out for the better for it, having been here.
Exactly.
So let's see.
Exactly. So I feel like